Hello there! This November I thought I would do something exciting, which kind of ties into non-fiction November because there are going to be a lot of non-fiction books involved. But I thought I would do something called the Not the Normal November, because since joining my writing course with the Faber Academy, we've had to recommend books to each other, and I think what's really come out of this for me is that there are a lot of fantastic books out there which I wouldn't normally gravitate towards. I think we're all guilty of kind of sticking to the genre that we're comfortable in, but something that's really come out of the course for me is that it's important to read a lot of different things and to read widely so that you can understand how things are done and how books succeed in their different genres, and also to just have fun with reading again. I think sometimes we get stuck in slumps, and I think that's probably something that I'm definitely guilty of, where you get stuck in a slump of just reading the same kinds of books and none of them really stand out to you because they're all kind of just a bit samey. So I thought I would take this lesson and basically read books that are not my normal in November. The reason that this fits in with non-fiction November is because I don't often read non-fiction, so I have stuck a few non-fictions in there as well. I've got 8 books to speak to you about, which are going to be the ones that I'm reading. 8 may seem like a strange number, but I generally read about 8 physical books a month, so I think that's kind of, yeah, it kind of worked, and also that's how many books I had that I wanted to read. So anyway, the first one I'm going to be picking up is The Silkworm by Robert Galbraith, aka J.K. Rowling. This is the second in the Cormoran Strike series. I read The Cuckoo's Calling probably about 5 years ago, maybe even more, and it was fine. It wasn't really my kind of thing. I think crime is not something that I generally gravitate towards, and J.K. Rowling is not particularly my favourite author, so for those reasons these books don't really appeal to me. However, I was talking with one of the women on my course and she was saying that this is like the best writing she's ever read. So I thought I would go back and give this a go. I've had it on my shelf for a long time, and it's been ages since I've had a crime novel to read actually, and a lot of people on the course are doing crime novels, so I think it'll be quite interesting to give this one a go. My main problem with crime is that I think often, and it's kind of a necessity of the genre I suppose, but often the reveal at the end is either too obvious or it's a complete curveball and it's just been shoved in there for the sake of shocking. I cannot think of any crime novel I've read that has not been like that, other than Angels and Demons by Dan Brown. Is that what he's called? Anyway, that book had a real shock ending for me, but every other crime I've read has either been predictable or just too left field. So we'll see how I get on with these. Then I have got a non-fiction, which is a bit of a cheat because it's a book that I would definitely gravitate towards normally because it's by Olivia Lang, but it's The Trip to Echo Springs, and the reason that I've picked it up is because it's a non-fiction book, so it counts for non-fiction November. Non-fiction isn't something I typically pick up. Basically, this is Olivia Lang's look at writers and why they drink. So I think she looks at authors like Hemingway and S. Scott Fitzgerald and why basically so many authors end up drinking very heavily or becoming alcoholics. I just think it sounds like everything that I could ever want in a non-fiction book, so I'm very much looking forward to that one. Then I have got Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. Now this, it obviously is a book that I would gravitate towards because I picked it up quite soon after it came out. It won the Costa Book Awards this year, and the reason that I'm including this in here is because it's a very big bestseller. You know, it's on all the stands in WH Smith. It was on a massive table in Waterstones when I went in there, and I do not typically gravitate towards bestsellers for no real reason other than I just think they're often just not my cup of tea really. They're quite commercial fiction I suppose, rather than the stuff that I prefer. However, I thought I would give this a go because I've heard so many good things about it. Again, one of the women on my course has used this as inspiration for her novel, so I want to read it for that purpose. And also I was on a writing course yesterday and they were speaking about this. From the sounds of it, and I may be completely wrong, it sounds a lot like The Less Than Perfect Life of Donna Creosote, which is not a book that I particularly enjoyed, but we'll see. I think it's kind of the same thing, but I'm sure it's done in a different way. Then I've got another kind of non-fiction, which is Truman Capote in Cold Blood. I believe this is basically Truman Capote's look at a real life murder, so it's kind of true crime, which is not something that I think I have ever read before. So I've had this on my shelf for a while, and it's got very, very small writing in it, so I don't know if I'll get to it, and this is probably the newest book from this list, so I might not, but I like having that on there because it's a book that I'm really intrigued to read, and I think because it is so far away from what I would typically read, I think it could probably be quite good for getting the ideas flowing. Then I have got Graham Greene, The Heart of the Matter. Again, Graham Greene is an author that has been recommended quite a lot by my academy classmates, but he is a male author who I perhaps wouldn't typically gravitate towards. Men I don't gravitate towards anyway, but he's kind of somebody who, I don't know, I've had this on my shelf probably for about 6 or 7 years, and it's never come up that I've wanted to pick it up, even though I've heard nothing but good things. I'm pretty sure Dawn French said this was one of her favourite books. Might be completely wrong there, but that rings a bell. So I want to read this, and it's not too big, although again the writing is fairly small, but we'll see. I think it would be interesting to give this one a go. Then I have got The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. You may remember this was on my big books TBR, so I'm kind of crossing over here. But I thought it's historical fiction, which isn't something that I typically read for no real reason. It's just not something that I often pick up. So I thought it would be good to put this in here because I think it does count in the not the normal section. So I will enjoy getting to that one. And then I have got a book which I said briefly that I did a writing course yesterday. One of the speakers at that writing course was Elizabeth Enfield, who was fantastic and gave me so many ideas. But this is her book Ivy and Abe, which she was selling on the day, and absolutely fantastic. Now the reason that I put it in here is because to look at the cover, it's not a book that I would probably pick up. It's got, you know, a love heart, it's kind of pinky. As much as it looks, I mean, it looks lovely, it is pretty, but it's not a book that I would probably look at and think, oh, that would appeal to me. But basically this is about a couple called Ivy and Abe, and it looks at, I think she said, 10 different situations. So 10 different times when they meet at, you know, in different ways, and it looks at how they are different and how they interact differently dependent on how they meet, which I think sounds so fascinating in terms of character. And she was actually saying yesterday about the need to sort of consider how characters act differently around the people that they're with, because obviously we all act slightly differently depending on who we're around, whether it be our friends or parents or whatever. So I think this will be really interesting in terms of that. But yeah, I thought it counted in here because just from the appearance of it, it doesn't look like a typically book that I would pick up, but I'm really expecting to enjoy this one. And then finally, I've got another non-fiction, which is a library book. So I thought I would pop this in here, which is Neil Gaiman's Norse Mythology. Again, it's kind of in the not the normal section because I don't normally pick up non-fiction. I also don't read near enough about mythology. This I have on audio, and it's narrated by Neil Gaiman, who just has the nicest speaking voice you could imagine. However, I've started listening to it a few times and I just can't get into it. I can't hold the stories in my head for some reason. I'm wondering whether it's because I have absolutely no idea about Norse mythology, so I don't know enough to be able to listen and grasp what's going on. Either way, I just can't get along with it, so I saw it in the library and I thought I would pick it up in that form. I'm really interested in mythology. I think I read a book about mythology, I think back in February actually, perhaps March, which was basically just a brief look at all of mythology, and that was really interesting. And it's crazy how many of the things in our lives now originate from or come back to myth. So I think a book by Neil Gaiman about myths has got to be good, right? So I'm really looking forward to that one. So these are my Not the Normal / non-fiction November picks. Please feel free to join in if you want to read some books that are perhaps not your normal thing, and if you do, please let me know down below what you will be reading, and I will see you next time. Bye!